U.S. candidate for the presidency Joe Biden denounces harassment against one of his campaign buses by followers of President Donald Trump in Texas. Antigua and Barbudas Prime Minister Gaston Brown brings a message of hope to those affected by COVID-19 during a speech commemorating 39 years of the country's independence. Countries across Europe return to strict confinement after a surge in COVID-19 cases. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada from TeleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. U.S. candidate for the presidency Joe Biden denounced this Sunday the harassment of one of his campaign buses by followers of President Donald Trump on a Texas highway. The Democratic Party indicated that the bus, on which congressional candidate Wendy Davis was traveling, stopped, forcing her team cancel two planned events and a press conference, citing security concerns. Trump himself tweeted a video Saturday night with the message, "I love Texas." The Democratic candidate added that the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., made a video in which he encouraged his father's follower to keep it up and find out there where his running mate, Kamala Harris, is to receive her in the same way. The incident is being investigated by the FBI. In the United States, a New York Times poll suggests that Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden is leading Donald Trump across four of the most important swing states in the November 3rd election. Biden is ahead in the states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Arizona. His lead is most pronounced in Wisconsin, where he has an 11-point majority. The former vice president also has a modest advantage in Florida, where he leads by 3 points, as well as 6 points in both Arizona and Pennsylvania. And the United States is facing an alarming new surge of coronavirus cases this weekend. The director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, Anthony Fauci, warned that the people in the country must be prepared for a whole lot of hurt. Addressing the actual U.S. coronavirus response by the Donald Trump's administration, the government's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Fauci, pointed out that the country's position towards the health public threat of COVID-19 could not be possible to be more poorly, and an abrupt change is needed in public health precautions. Followed by his statements, the White House issued a stern rebuke of Dr. Anthony Fauci. According to the COVID-19 recent figures, the new records are reaching 100,000 cases of infection in a day. And the COVID-19 pandemic has not only created a crisis in the United States healthcare system, but has also forced the sharpest contraction of the country's economy in decades. A Columbia University study suggests that if unemployment rates increase to 30% for the rest of the year, as one estimate from the Federal Reserve projects, more than 21 million individuals will become impoverished, marking the highest record rate of poverty since at least 1967.
Streets and parks are now home to thousands of U.S. citizens like Henry, who lost his job amid the closure of businesses as a result of the pandemic.
I am trying to fix my situation, but the economy as it is, it's hard. I'm in construction, but with the current challenges, I just try to survive one day at a time.
According to data from the Center on Poverty and Social Policy at Columbia University, the percentage of people living in poverty before the pandemic hit the United States was 15%, but this figure has jumped to 16.7% in September.
Millions of those who are in the middle class are vulnerable and at risk of falling into poverty.
In many cities like New York, it's common to see homeless people or those recently unemployed standing in long lines to receive care packages or donations. People are now forced to search for food to feed their families.
The job closed down and said everybody go on unemployment. I filed for unemployment, never got anything, so I had to be here in the shelter.
The economy for most working people is completely destroyed because of his incompetence. he has used the presidency for his own enrichment.
The Columbia University study states more than 55 million people are earning less than $26,200 a year, which is what the federal government considers the poverty line. Despite this, Congress postponed a new aid program. The Republican Senate blocked the vote by suspending sessions until November 9th. Now, President Donald Trump assures there will be another stimulus check of $1,200, but after the election. As such, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is accusing Republicans of using the initiative as a political tool.
Prison riots in Argentina have come to an end after an agreement was reached that allows inmates to receive family visits despite the ongoing pandemic. Previously, inmates climbed onto the roofs of at least 4 prisons in Buenos Aires, demanding permits to receive visitors amid the coronavirus pandemic. Once the virus began to spread, prison visits were prohibited, with inmates only allowed to communicate with their loved ones using mobile phones. Though there were no casualties, authorities reported some minor injuries and short-lived hostage situation. And Peru's majestic Inca citadel of Machu Picchu has reopened after 7 months of closure due to the coronavirus pandemic. Built in the 15th century, Machu Picchu will receive a maximum of 675 visitors a day, which is about the 30% of the usual traffic. Before entering, visitors will have their temperatures taken and will be required to wear masks and stand at least 2 meters apart. Groups, including a guide, cannot be larger than 8 people, and children under 12 will not be allowed. To avoid crowded visitors will travel in 4 circuits.
We understand the second hard wave that all of Europe is experiencing at the moment, and obviously we are aware of that the arrival of foreign tourists will only be possible next year. But the important thing is that they have us in their minds, and that they know that we are getting ready to receive them when the time comes. In the management, as we're going to monitor the health figures, obviously with the economic opening, to be able to find this balance, we have to find a balance for managing the pandemic and a balance for managing a responsible economic reactivation.
And we'll take a short break now, but join us again in a minute. Welcome back to From the South. On the 39th anniversary of Antigua and Barbudas independence, Prime Minister Gaston Brown sought to inspire hope in citizens who have been impacted by COVID-19. He assured that the fight against the virus continues, as he boasted that his government has managed to control the epidemic.
In Antigua and Barbuda are better off than most of the people in the world. Globally, there are almost 1.2 million deaths and increasing. In Antigua and Barbuda, we have contained our loss of life to only 3 persons. Across the world, there are about 45 million infected persons. In our country, we had a total of 124 persons, of whom the majority have all recovered, leaving us with only 8 active cases. By any measure, our performance has been outstanding, and even as we celebrate our independence, it is good to know that in times of crisis, we have committed friends. Cuba is among them. Cuba would have made available medical personnel to join our own doctors and nurses and others on the front lines of confronting the virus. Our nation is indebted to all our health workers and all the others on the front lines. They are our warriors on the front line of the battle, and they deserve our praise and our thanks.
Some Central American countries are preparing for Tropical Storm Ida, the 29th depression to form in the Caribbean Sea this season. According to the United States National Hurricane Center, Ida is expected to strengthen into a hurricane and make landfall in Nicaragua or Honduras late on Monday. Nicaragua has declared a hurricane warning and has issued a yellow alert for northern parts of the country, including the North Caribbean Coast Autonomous Region. Tropical storm warnings are in effect for Honduras, with Costa Rica and Jamaica on high alert. The Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, announced this Sunday 300 new positive COVID-19 cases in the country. She also reported 3 deaths related to the virus.
In the last 24 hours, 300 positive cases of community transmission have been detected in Venezuela. The Carabobo state has the highest incidence with 60 cases.
The Vice President also said that at least 94% of the patients infected with COVID-19 in the country have recovered.
A very important fact that we always point out: to this date, Venezuela already has 92,325 cases, but of that number are already recovered 94% of cases. It's a number that reflects the treatment schemes, the research lines with therapies that we are applying in a trial form. But we know that the Venezuelan method in its treatment scheme are giving very good results.
The President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, reported that sport activities will be reactivated, taking the necessary biosecurity measures to prevent the spread of the COVID-19.
This week was started in a special modality. I have been told that the Venezuelan Baseball League starts on November 15th. I think we could make a protocol that would allow a seating capacity of 30% of football stadiums, baseball stadiums, and basketball stadiums.
The election of Algeria's referendum on constitution amendment was held this Sunday, with participation rate of 23.7% after polls closed this Sunday evening. The constitution reform was proposed by the government in an attempt to neutralize a protest movement, which last year led to the resignation of President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. However, from over 24 million Algerian voters who were eligible, only some 4 million casted their ballots. Bouteflika's successor, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has pitched the text as meeting the demands of the Hirak, a youth-led movement that staged vast weekly demonstrations for more than a year until the coronavirus pandemic stopped rallies. But observers said the document offers little updates, with social economic rights not being directly enforceable. The Hirak was rejected the document in substance and form, calling it a change of facade and urging voters to boycott the poll. Ivory Coast officials are still tallying results after a tense presidential ballot marked by an opposition boycott and protests over President Alassane Ouattara's bid for a 3rd term. Electoral officials have up to 5 days to release the results, and it is not clear when the Election Commission intends to make an announcement. Scattered protests were reported during Saturday polls, mostly in opposition strongholds, although Ouattara had called for calm tensions first erupted in August when Ouattara announced he will run for a 3rd term, injuring opposition leaders who dismissed it as an unconstitutional electoral coup. And as counting continues, Ivorian opposition leader Pascal Afin-Guessan claimed the abstention rate in the election was over the 90%, as a landslide victory is expected for President Alassane Ouattara. However, several opposition leaders had called for a boycott on the election.
The conduct of the presidential election of 31st October 2020 was marred by numerous irregularities, including the non-operationality of many local commissions and polling stations, the irregular removal of many polling places, and the non-participation of more than 90% of voters in the ballot. At least 30 people have died, a total of nearly 110 deaths since the announcement of the unconstitutional and illegal candidacy of outgoing President Alassane Ouattara.
South Africa's largest opposition party has elected John Steenhuisen as their leader. Steenhuisen, who has acted as interim party leader since his first black leader, Mmusi Maimane, quit over a year ago, has also served as party chief whip in the parliament. He was vowed to take the centre-right Democratic Alliance to greater heights after a slump in electoral support.
Of this party for its own sake. I'm here today because I want to take the DA to greater heights in a fight for our country where each and every citizen has the power to build a dignified life. People want to stand on their own 2 feet as self-reliant, autonomous human beings. They want power and freedom to make their own choices and build a life they value. This is what the DA will offer under my leadership. People power, not state power.
And the president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, has called on protesting youth to end demonstrations as he pleaded for dialogue to discuss police reform. Young people have taken to the streets for several weeks to demand the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, which is accused of brutality and murder. On Sunday, protesters painted "End SARS" at the entrance of the Abuja airport. In a statement, Buhari said, although he acknowledged young people's constitutional right to protest peacefully, they must stop the strike before other forces redirect them in ways they did not intend. And we'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Several countries across Europe have returned to strict confinement after recording record figures of cases of COVID-19. European countries are the third most affected region with 10.4 million official cases, and governments are taking new actions to prevent further spread, while the number of additional recorded cases jumped 41% in 1 week. Ireland was the first country on the continent to adjust restrictive systems since last October 21st. The measure was followed by other countries such as France that decreed new lockdown measures since past October 30, while being the major epicenter of coronavirus infections in Europe. And in Georgia, following the announcement of the preliminary results of Georgia's parliamentary elections, opposition parties have taken to the streets to protest against the ruling party's victory. According to the Central Election Commission, the Georgian Dream Party had received 48.1% of Saturday's vote, with more than 99% of ballots counted. The biggest opposition alliance, led by the United National Movement Party, got 27.1%, while the ruling party said they won enough seats to the 150-seat parliament to form a government. The opposition claimed that the election was rigged and refused to recognize the results. Opposition leaders say they will continue with the protests until their demands are met.
Inside the opposition, and I would say inside the critical mass of the public, is that this kind of a process with mass bribery of voters, intimidation and violence and manipulation do not represent the will of Georgian people. So the demand is that these elections cannot represent the government of Georgia for the next 4 years. The normal path forward is to have a new elections. That's where the consensus is right now.
Men were arrested in connection with a knife attack that left 3 dead at a church in Nice, France, bringing the number of people in custody to 6. The latest arrest in the case involved 2 men from the town of Grasse, near the southern French coast close to Nice. An assailant beheaded a woman and killed 2 other people in a church in Nice on Thursday. In France, second deadly knife attack in 2 weeks with a suspected Islamist motive. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has pledged to secure Armenia's withdrawal from the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh by any means. Aliyev was speaking in the capital Baku after talks with visiting Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu. Ankara, which has thrown its weight behind Azerbaijan in the conflict, has sought to take a more prominent role in the peace talks, something Armenia has vehemently opposed. Fighting over the separatist territory of Nagorno-Karabakh entered this sixth week on Sunday, with both sides blaming each other for new attacks.
Armenian military withdrawal from the occupied territories to be guaranteed during negotiations at the earliest possible date. Otherwise, we will continue to restore our territorial integrity by any means. And as I said, we will go to the end.
Thousands of protesters have flooded the Belarusian capital, Minsk, for the 12th week since the disputed elections to demand the resignation of veteran leader Alexander Lukashenko. The protesters defied warning shots and stun grenades used by riot police who were trying to disperse them. Several people are reported to have been arrested during the demonstration. The former Soviet nation has been gripped by opposition protests since Lukashenko claimed the victory in the presidential polls held in August. Indian police informed that the chief of the terrorist group Hizbul Mujahideen was killed in an encounter of the outskirts in Srinagar on Sunday, calling it a major success against militancy. The dead commander, Saifullah Mir, was the chief of operation of the region's largest rebel group, which for decades have spearheaded an armed campaign against Indian rule. Kashmir Inspector General of Police Vijay Kumar said security forces launched an operation on Sunday, acting on intelligence about the presence of in a neighborhood on the outskirts of Srinagar. He said a gun battle ensued in which the commander was killed and his suspected associate was captured. With this information, we have come to the end of this news brief, but for today, we'll leave with images of a 20th Trade Expo which has led in East China to promote cooperative partnership with South Korea. See you next time.